Priscilla gave in. "Fine, I'll go, but I'm not drinking too much." They all giggled as they began to dress up. Grace lent Priscilla a dress, tight, short, and glittery. She also gave her some lip gloss and earrings. When Priscilla looked in the mirror, even she couldn't recognize herself. Tony stood by the window of his living room, staring into the empty street outside. The breeze was calm, the trees barely moved, but his heart remained restless. His mind drifted once again to that painful day that changed everything. It had been 5 years since Joy died, yet the memory of her soft laughter still echoed in the corners of the house. She was only 25 when she had Priscilla, young, full of life and incredibly beautiful. Their love had been something people admired. They were inseparable. But life had its own way of teaching lessons no one ever asked for. Tony had just returned home from work the day Joy died. He remembered clearly how he called her phone repeatedly, wondering why she wasn't picking up. It was unlike her. Then his phone rang, and that was when everything broke apart. The voice on the other end was trembling. "Sir, your wife has been in an accident." Joy had gone to the market to get ingredients for Priscilla's favourite soup. It was supposed to be a normal day, but on her way back, a reckless truck driver lost control and rammed into her car. She didn't survive. The injury was too much. Her death shook the whole neighbourhood. Everyone knew Joy. She was kind, respectful, and cheerful. The funeral was filled with tears and disbelief, but none cried harder than Tony. He collapsed twice that day. Losing her was like losing a part of his soul. Priscilla was only 15. She didn't understand how someone could be alive in the morning and gone by evening. She kept staring at her mother's framed photo on the wall, asking questions no one had answers to. That night, Tony held his daughter close and whispered, "I promise you, I'll be both your mother and father. I'll never let you down." From that day, Tony changed. He became more than just a father. He woke up early to prepare breakfast, helped Priscilla with her schoolwork, and made sure she never lacked anything. He refused to remarry. Many women admired him, tall, handsome, responsible, but his heart was locked. Joy still lived there. Priscilla, now 20, had grown into a fine young woman. She was smart, focused, and had her mother's smile. Her academics were always top of the class. Teachers loved her, neighbours respected her. Everyone admired the strong bond she shared with her father. People often said she got her strength from him, but Priscilla would always respond with, "My dad is my hero." Though Tony smiled often, behind closed doors, he still struggled. The nights were the hardest. Sometimes he'd sit at the edge of his bed and speak to Joy's photo. "I hope you're proud of me, my love. I'm trying. I really am." He worked hard at his job as a building contractor, sometimes taking double shifts just to make sure Priscilla lacked nothing. They weren't rich, but they were content. Love filled their home. Still, unknown to both of them, life had another twist waiting ahead, one that would test everything they'd built. That Saturday morning started like every other weekend at Tony's house. The sun was soft in the sky, and the air was fresh with the smell of clean laundry and wet soap. Tony, as usual, had woken up early. He had swept every corner of the compound, watered the small garden Joy planted years ago, and was now inside scrubbing dishes with Priscilla by his side. It had become their little weekend tradition, cleaning together, talking about life, sharing memories of joy and laughing over childhood stories. As Tony rinsed a plate and handed it to Priscilla to dry, a knock came at the door. They both paused and exchanged a look. Visitors were rare on weekends. "Who could that be?" Priscilla asked, wiping her hands on the dish towel. "I'll check," Tony said, walking toward the front door. He opened the door to find a man in a neatly ironed courier uniform holding a brown envelope. "Good morning, sir. Are you Mr. Tony?" "Yes, I am." The man handed him the envelope, nodded, and left without another word. Tony shut the door slowly, his eyes fixed on the envelope. His heart began to race. The logo at the top left corner told him it was from his workplace. He frowned slightly. What could this be? Priscilla watched him from the kitchen. Who was that, Dad? Tony didn't respond. He sat down on the nearest couch, carefully tore open the envelope, and pulled out a neatly folded letter. As his eyes moved across the lines, his hands began to tremble. Vlash. Tony? We regret to inform you that due to ongoing restructuring, your position with the company has been terminated, effective immediately. We appreciate your years of service. That was all Tony could read before his vision blurred with tears. He hadn't seen it coming. There had been no warning, no complaints, no meetings, nothing. After everything he had given that company, this was how they repaid him? He buried his face in his hands, trying to breathe through the sudden wave of pain that hit him. What will I do now? He thought. How will I tell Priscilla? Her school, her needs, the bills. Everything depends on me. But before he could even gather himself, Priscilla came rushing from the kitchen, her voice filled with joy. Daddy, Daddy, she squealed. Guess what? I just got admitted into the university. Look, I just got the email. She threw her arms around him, holding her phone in the other hand. Tony quickly wiped his tears with the sleeve of his shirt and forced a smile. Wow, that's amazing news, sweetheart. I told you, Daddy. I told you I would make you proud, she said, dancing excitedly. Tony hugged her tightly, his smile hiding the storm that raged inside him. You've always made me proud, Priscilla. Always. That night, Tony lay on his bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. He hadn't spoken to anyone about the sack letter, not even his brother or his close friends. He tossed and turned, trying to find sleep, but his mind wouldn't stop running. Why me? What did I do wrong? How am I going to pay her school fees? What will we eat next month? He kept replaying the moment he read the letter, hoping it was a mistake. But it wasn't. It was real. Too real. The next morning, he decided to be strong, for Priscilla. He prepared breakfast and called her into the living room. She came in with her usual smile, humming a tune under her breath. Come, sit, Tony said with a gentle voice. Priscilla sat, still beaming with joy from the admission news. What is it, Dad? I just wanted to say how proud I am of you, Tony began. You've always been focused, respectful, and hard-working. Your mother would be so proud of the woman you're becoming. Priscilla's smile widened. I want you to stay focused in school, no distractions. University life will test you, but don't forget who you are or where you're coming from. I won't disappoint you, Dad, she said. I know you won't. They ate in silence after that, both lost in their thoughts, Priscilla thinking about the journey ahead and the joy of starting a new phase, and Tony silently calculating how long the little savings he had would last. By Monday morning, Priscilla had packed her things and was ready to leave for school. Tony helped her load her bags into a taxi, and with a long, emotional hug, he watched her drive away, waving until the car disappeared into the street. Now, the house was empty. Quiet. Tony stood in the middle of the living room for a long time before finally sitting down. He looked around the room. Every corner reminded him of Joy and Priscilla. Every wall held a memory. But memories wouldn't pay bills. Love wouldn't buy food. The next morning, Tony wore his neatest shirt, ironed his trousers, and stepped out into the streets of Lagos with a small file of his CVs under his arm. He knocked on doors, spoke to strangers, walked long distances in the heat, and returned home each day exhausted, with no news. It took 2 full weeks of rejection before he finally got a call from a small construction company. The pay wasn't close to what he used to earn, but it was something. He accepted the offer without hesitation. I can't afford to wait for something better, he told himself. Priscilla needs me. I'll take anything as long as it keeps the lights on and food on the table. he resumed immediately. The work was hard and the hours were long, but he never complained. He woke up every day before the sun, returned home late, and sometimes even skipped meals just to save money. In all of this, he never told Priscilla what happened. He didn't want her to worry. He sent her her allowance every week, called her regularly, and never let his voice give away the hardship he was going through. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the weight of the struggle was beginning to press on him more heavily than ever before. Priscilla's first few weeks in the university were filled with excitement and new experiences. Everything felt different from home. The large campus, the endless freedom, the lecture halls buzzing with students. It was all new to her. She was eager to start her journey and make her father proud. But things started to shift the moment she met her hostel mates, Shade and Grace. Shade was the daughter of a politician and Grace the only child of a successful businesswoman. Both girls were used to the high life. Their hostel rooms were decorated like hotel suites, with mini fridges stocked with imported drinks, the latest gadgets, expensive perfumes, and wardrobes filled with designer clothes. They wore gold jewelry, used iPhones, and never talked about school fees or allowances. Money was never a problem for them. Priscilla, on the other hand, came from a modest background. Her room was neat and organized, but simple. A small mattress on the floor, a reading table, and a few clothes packed neatly in a corner. She had only one phone, a mid-range Android, and most of her daily expenses were calculated to the last naira. At first, she didn't mind the difference. She knew where she came from. But the more time she spent with Shade and Grace, the more she started to feel uncomfortable about her life. Whenever they went out, Shade would foot the bill without blinking. Grace once bought a wig worth over 200,000 naira and didn't even brag about it. Priscilla began to envy them secretly. She admired how confident they were, how they didn't think twice before buying anything they wanted, and how boys gathered around them like bees to honey. Soon, she started calling Tony more often. "Daddy, I need money for textbooks." A few days later, "Daddy, my lecturer asked us to pay for handouts." Then, "Daddy, I need money to fix my phone." And then, "Daddy, please, I want to buy a few clothes. I can't keep wearing the same things." Tony, even with his low-paid job, always tried to send what he could. He skipped meals just to save. He took extra shifts when they were available. Sometimes he borrowed. He wanted his daughter to be comfortable. He never wanted her to feel different from others. But it seemed like no matter what he sent, Priscilla always wanted more. One afternoon, as they returned from lectures, the girls sat on their beds, relaxing after a long day. Grace suddenly broke the silence. "Babes, guess what?" she said, eyes sparkling. "What?" Shade replied, already smiling. "Someone invited me to a party tonight. Big hotel, poolside, food, drinks, music, all for free. I want us to go. It'll be fun." Shade clapped excitedly. "You know I'm always down for fun." But Priscilla hesitated. "I don't know. I've never really gone to parties like that before." Grace rolled her eyes. "Babe, relax now. You're in university now, not boarding school. You need to enjoy this phase O. Or do you want to be a boring bookworm forever?" Jade chimed in. "No be every time, class. Sometimes you gat catch cruise, free food and drinks, wetin you wan, use, excuse do." After some convincing, Priscilla gave in. "Fine, I'll go, but I'm not drinking too much." They all giggled as they began to dress up. Grace lent Priscilla a dress, tight, short, and glittery. She also gave her some lip gloss and earrings. When Priscilla looked in the mirror, even she couldn't recognize herself. "You look hot, girl," Shade said, clapping. By 8 p.m., they arrived at the hotel. The music was loud and the air was filled with excitement. People danced around the pool, drinks flowed freely, and the place sparkled with lights and laughter. Priscilla had never seen anything like it. As they made their way into the crowd, a guy walked up to Priscilla. He was tall, dark, and wore a confident smile. "Hi," he said, stretching out his hand. "I'm Adi." Priscilla smiled nervously and shook his hand. "I'm Priscilla. Nice to meet you. Want to dance?" She looked around at Shade and Grace, both already dancing with guys, and nodded slowly. "Okay." They danced to the rhythm of the music, and soon Priscilla was laughing and having fun. Ade whispered things in her ear, complimenting her beauty, telling her how amazing her smile was. She blushed and giggled, feeling seen in a way she hadn't felt before. Grace and Shade were also having the time of their lives, drinking and flirting with the guys they came with. As the night went on, the drinks kept coming. Cocktails, wines, shots. Priscilla took just a few sips at first, but soon the pressure to join in became overwhelming. "Come on, it's just a drink." "Don't be a baby," Grace teased. Eventually, Priscilla gave in. One sip turned into two, then more. Her head started to feel light, her steps unsteady. By the time they left the party, the girls were laughing loudly, leaning on the boys for support. Grace and Shade knew their guys. They had hung out before, but for Priscilla, Ade was a stranger. Still, she didn't feel threatened. He had been nice all night, attentive, even caring. "We'll take them home," Ade said. "No worries," Grace slurred, waving her hand as she climbed into the back of a car with her guy. They arrived back at the hostel late into the night. Grace and Shade disappeared into their rooms with their companions. Ade walked Priscilla to hers. She stumbled a bit and he held her waist. "Easy," he said with a smile. "Let me help you inside." She didn't resist. Her head spun from the alcohol. The room felt distant, like a dream. She sat on the bed trying to steady herself. "Want some water?" Ade asked. She nodded, but before she could even collect her thoughts, he sat beside her and leaned in. "Ad," she said softly. "Shh," he whispered. Priscilla was too weak to fight, too drunk to make sense of what was happening. Everything was a blur, and before she could fully process it, Ade had his way with her. When it was over, she lay there in silence. Her dress crumpled, her hair messy, her heart beating fast. Not from love or joy, but confusion and pain. Ade left quietly, saying he'd call her later. The door clicked behind him, leaving her in the silence of her now dark and cold room. She stared at the ceiling, her eyes wide open. Shame wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. The night that began with laughter ended with something she couldn't even name. She didn't cry, not yet. She just lay there, broken, still and silent. Her emotions were all over the place. Confusion, guilt, fear. She barely slept that night, tossing and turning, hoping it was all just a bad dream. But when morning came, and the weight in her chest was still there, she realized it wasn't. The next day, she gathered enough courage to tell Shade and Grace about it. She pulled them aside after their lecture, her eyes swollen from crying all night. "I think I made a terrible mistake," Priscilla whispered, her voice shaking. Shade leaned closer, concerned. "What happened?" Priscilla took a deep breath and told them about that night. The party, the drinks, how she felt dizzy and couldn't remember everything. How she had woken up the next morning, aching and ashamed. Grace gently rubbed her back. "Look, Priscilla, I know it feels like the world is crashing right now, but you'll be fine. It happens. It's not new. You'll get over it." Shade nodded in agreement. "Honestly, we've all been there. Don't let it eat you up. Just move on and be careful next time." Their words were meant to comfort her, but they didn't do much. Priscilla forced a small smile, even though her heart was heavy. She tried to act normal in the days that followed, but something felt off. Her body was different. She was always tired, sometimes nauseous, and she started missing her early morning lectures. The worst part was that she hadn't seen her period. At first, she thought it was stress. She tried not to panic, but as days turned into weeks and nothing changed, fear began to grip her. One evening in the hostel, she sat with Shade and Grace, her voice low and anxious. "I still haven't seen my period." Grace scoffed and waved her hand dismissively. "Relax, George, it's probably just late. Maybe the stress from school is affecting your cycle." Shade nodded, Don't jump to conclusions. Just wait a few more days. But Priscilla couldn't relax. Her body was screaming that something was wrong. And then the morning sickness started. Each time she brushed her teeth, she felt like vomiting. Smells she used to enjoy now made her stomach turn. She tried to hide it, but it was getting harder. Then it happened. One hot afternoon, while they were walking back from class, everything around her began to spin. Her legs felt weak. Before she could say anything, her eyes rolled back and she collapsed on the ground. "Priscilla!" Shade screamed. People gathered around quickly. Grace and Shade panicked, trying to revive her. A few students helped carry her to the school medical center. The nurse rushed to attend to her and, after asking several questions, she directed that Priscilla be admitted immediately. Shade and Grace sat nervously outside while the nurse ran some tests. After some time, the nurse came out of the room, her face hard and cold. "Which of you is her guardian?" she asked firmly. "We're just her friends," Shade said, standing up quickly. "Well, I suggest both of you return to your hostel now. The school management will take it from here." Grace opened her mouth to ask a question, but quickly shut it when she saw the expression on the nurse's face. Without another word, they both walked away, unsure of what was happening. A few hours later, Tony was sitting in his office when his phone rang. It was a call from the school. He picked up, and the words he heard made him drop everything. "Mr. Tony, your daughter Priscilla has been admitted to the school clinic, and there's something urgent we need to discuss. She'll also be facing disciplinary action. Please come immediately." Tony didn't ask questions. He left work and drove straight to the school. His heart raced the whole way, thinking the worst. Had she been involved in a fight? Caught cheating? He never imagined what he was about to hear. When he got to the clinic, the doctor invited him into the office. Priscilla was now awake, her face pale and tired. She couldn't meet her father's eyes. "Good afternoon, sir," the doctor began. "I know this will be hard to take in, but your daughter is 7 weeks pregnant." Tony blinked. "Excuse me?" The doctor repeated the words slowly. "She is 7 weeks pregnant." Tony looked at Priscilla, hoping this was some cruel mistake. "Pregnant? What's this man talking about?" Priscilla still couldn't look up. Tears streamed silently down her cheeks. Her lips trembled, but no words came. "Talk to me, Priscilla," Tony shouted. "Is this true?" "Oh, Daddy, I'm sorry," she whispered. It just happened once. I followed Shade and Grace to a party. I didn't know it would go this far." Tony was stunned. His breath caught in his throat. The air in the room felt heavy. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. "All the sacrifices I made," he said slowly, his voice shaking with rage. "All the nights I went hungry just so you could have the best life. I gave up everything for you. Daddy, please." Priscilla tried to speak again, but her voice broke. Tony stood up abruptly, his face red with anger. "After what I have been through, after all the struggles..." Priscilla sobbed uncontrollably, reaching for him. "Daddy, please. I didn't mean for this to happen." But Tony stepped back, his eyes full of pain and fury. "Don't call me that. From today, you're no longer my child." His voice thundered across the room. "I disown you." And with that, he turned and walked out of the room, slamming the door behind him.